Well, this is John again, Chicago 0991, and today we're going to talk about this thing. This is the Zoeller M98, and what it is, it's a sump pump. And like everybody else, you don't worry about a sump pump until at which time your sump pump fails. At which time then you say, you know, my sump pump failed. And what you do then is throw your hands up and say, how do I make it better? And how do you make it better is by getting another one. And here I am in Chicago, and we have some serious rains in the wintertime and the spring. And so sump pump cycles. And then after a while, if it cycles too much, or else something gets clogged in it, or some other problem, circuit breaker breaks or something, the next thing you know, you got a wet basement. So then what you do is just go get another one and put it back in, and you put the other one aside or curse it, do whatever you want to do with it. And then after a while you say, why did it fail? So this is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to talk about this Zoeller, which I think is an outstanding pump, even though you can see it's on my pool table instead of in a sump pump tank. And the reason is because after 1 year in the sump pump tank, a little problem occurred, which was the basement flooded, and I blamed this pump. What actually happened after I replaced it with another pump and then just left it aside, I started looking inside it and see what's going on, and there was a rock underneath it. And the rock underneath it was wedged in between this area. It was wedged in there. And I don't know if you can see it too well, but that's where it was. It got in between this grating and the impeller, which is in there. And so I took it out and then tried it out again, see if the sump pump would work, and it works fine. So then I said, well, okay, I got an extra sump pump. But in my eagerness to do all sorts of things with it, I took the whole thing apart. And so then that was where the issue was. Now, if you're a plumber, then what you would do is you see a flooded basement, you wouldn't even think about if the circuit breaker was broke or there's stones underneath it or anything else. You would just kind of clean it up, take the old sump pump out, put a new sump pump in, charge the guy whatever you felt like charging him, and then be on your way. And you take the sump pump with you and set it off for recycling. Well, to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Because first of all, I changed the sump pump myself and had this one left over. I started thinking about what it is that could possibly go wrong with these things, and I came up with some things. First, you know, you got a wet basement because of a lot of reasons. One of them is that you lost power. The other is your float was always stuck down and couldn't raise up, or there's other things like that. And then, of course, with me, there was a stone problem underneath the impeller. But the switches can go bad, and other things can happen too. And one of the guys was talking about a capacitor that went bad. What I want to show you then is what I did, which is essentially I just got done starting to put this thing back together. I just put in the impeller back in, and underneath the impeller is a couple bearings that I put in. They have part numbers and all that somewhere. But anyway, if you're going to do this, you should definitely look at these parts diagram. And it also, with the parts diagram, it also has what the parts are, so you can actually see what the parts are on the diagram. And then you can see down there I was replacing 11 and 12, which I just did. And you say, well, if you got the parts diagram, you get the parts, and then you order the parts off the parts diagram from either, here's pump products, there's also another one called Zoeller, and there's a Granger too. Granger's a little more expensive, the way I looked at it. And then you get these parts. And the parts that you need are the parts that will get this thing back underwater. Now, the old expression, water will find a way, is never more true than with something that goes underwater. And this is a submersible sump pump. So if it goes underwater, then you got to have some very tight seals. Now, I looked at the website and it said a teaching video for Zoeller, and what that showed was how they make these things. Not only it shows how they make it, but at the end of the video they showed how they test every one of these things by dunking them under a great big vat of water to make sure that they are airtight. They don't just check one or two, they check them all, because they want to make sure that they're not going to immediately fail if there's a switch that's underwater or something along those lines. But anyway, so if water will find a way, you know, and that's like I say, there's probably no sump pump in the Titanic that isn't, the seal hasn't broken yet. Water will find a way through any of these different areas. So what kind of areas can the water find its way through? Here's a little, I haven't taken it off yet, but that's it's a little test hole that they have. This one down here is a test hole, and this is where you're going to put your dielectric stuff when you get all the stuff back together. Your dielectric goes in that hole. But you have this, you have that, which is... So John, back at it now. You can see that the next thing we want to talk about is where water can get into this thing, because, you know, water can get into anything if it's underwater long enough. So what you want to do when you put it back together is make sure you got a new gasket up in here. This will not be filled with anything in particular. It's going to be air filled. So you want to make sure it's airtight. Make sure the gasket's good, and make sure these grumettes are nice and good shape. The one for the float and the one for the cord down here. And they can be replaced for a very little bit of money. And then you want to make sure your motor looks good. There's a new gasket here, which you can get. All these are the gaskets and the seals. These are cheap. Now you start talking money when you start talking these capacitors, but this capacitor looks pretty good. So that's what you do, is you check everything out, seal it up tight. Now, the next thing you got to do is say, well, now I want to put this back together, but there was this fluid in here. What was it? It was dielectric fluid. Now, this dielectric fluid is scaring some people, but actually all it is a fluid that transmits the coolness from the sump pump tank through the cast iron wall, which has no way to stop it, the cool transfer into the dielectric fluid. So the dielectric fluid will be in this part, the engine compartment, and it will cool this engine. Now, the properties of a good dielectric would be that it doesn't catch on fire, that it doesn't carry a lot of sparks, because this is going to be an electric motor and it's going to be running in this. So what you do is get some of this dielectric fluid. And I got mine from, I'm not quite sure. You can get it from Granger, you get it from all these different places. But this is not terrible. This is not terrible. It doesn't have skull and crossbones on it. You know, it's not a ridiculous kind of a, you know, Chernobyl type of thing going on here. And it's got a material safety data sheet with it, and that has on it, it says that it's got some trans, which I think is trans fatty acids, which I think it makes it like vegetable oil, and, you know, It's the kind of stuff they used to use at McDonald's. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just saying it's a thing like vegetable oil, and so it's not terrible. And it's not going to kill you. And, you know, it didn't come with a Geiger counter to see how much radiation was given off by it. And this actually comes in a unit dose. My unit needs 30.5 ounces. So this is 30.5 ounces ready-made for this. And it would go in this hole. So what you do, well, I'll do it sometime, is put everything back together, put the top back on, and then pour in 30.5 ounces of this stuff, this dielectric fluid. And that will transfer then to cool temperatures from the sump pump tank into the engine compartment and keep the engine nice and cool. It's brilliant as far as I'm concerned, but it does do the job. Now, I think I would close up here now and just say that this is a nice sump pump. The design here looks like it's from an awful long time ago. You got the name of the guy right on the top here, and you got this ironwork on the bottom, which to me, you know, makes this kind of like something from a long, long time ago. But it's really well made. I'm very pleased with it. Got a nice engine, and it's good specs, all that. So I'm not a plumber. I'd like to think of myself as a preservationist. I like to preserve something like this little piece of Americana. And so therefore, you know, I like to keep this thing. I'm going to put it all back together, put it back down in the well, and see if it holds. Now, you know, it caught a stone before. I don't make sure it's not going to catch another stone. So I got this thing. This is I think they call it a pump stand. And what it does is an added layer of protection for this pump, so that, you know, the stones have to get through this, and then they have to get through the bottom of that grating too. They got through the bottom of the grating before, so this is another layer of protection. So I got this. It's metal. It's not flimsy like some people say it was. And so this is going to go back in, and I'm going to just, you know, just test it out. And so, like I say, this has been quite a journey. I'm very pleased with the workmanship here. All the clearances are very good, very tight. The color's good, the look is good, all that look good to me. So I hope that this helps others who might want to do something with their pump, rather than just throw it away and get another one because you don't want to even think about this again. Look at it. Take it aside. Put in a new one if you want to. I got a new one in mine. And then take it apart, look it around. So see it. See what's going on it. And then put it back together. Replace the parts that might need to be replaced. And then, you know, hang on to it. A great man in another video on another part of the internet said, you know, always have one that you're using, but always have one ready to go if the first one breaks. So that's word to the wise, you know, rather than going around to Ace Hardware at the middle of the night when the basement's flooded. You can just slide this one in, or if you wanted to, just put this one in tandem with the other one in the water, you know, so then you'd have a double backup. Either way, but you know, just don't throw these things away. It's just hard to believe that anybody would want to do that with something like this. Okay, this is John. Thanks for watching. I hope this gives you some incentive to just hang on to your pieces and fix it up if you can. Thanks. Bye.